Welcome, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us. My name is May Ann. I am Director for Multilateral Relations, Data Policy and Partnerships at Access Partnership, and also the Executive Director of the Asia Cloud Computing Association. Today, we will be speaking a little bit about artificial intelligence, Asia's engine for growth, and this is being hosted by the Telecom Review. And this is a Telecom Review webinar. We have a bunch of really amazing speakers with us today, but I do know that some people are still logging in because we've just hit the hour. So let's give everybody a little bit of time to log on, figure out Zoom, because sometimes Zoom demands that you update when you just click on it. So let's give everybody some time for that to happen. I know that I don't know about my fellow speakers. You know, sometimes when you're in a really emergency situation, you need to join and then suddenly your computer tells you it's time to update, and it's a critical update. You have to update it. It's like, oh, why? I'm not sure if anyone else has experienced that. I'm seeing some nods of the head. So yeah, I think that we definitely have people who have experienced that.
Anyway, it will be recorded online so people can watch the whole session in our web TV at telecom.tv. The whole session will be there. In fact, we discovered that many people watch later than do currently.
Well, I think that a lot of people may actually be in different time zones. So
yes, because we recorded and they know that they can watch it later.
Will do. All right. It's 2:01. I would love to be making sure that I respect everybody's time. Thank you so much for turning up on time for this webinar. It's going to be a really exciting one. I do know that we have been, everybody and their dog has been speaking about artificial intelligence, but I think that right now we are at a point in time of the discussion where we do need to drill down a little bit more into specific sectors. So I'm really, really happy for us to be here at this Telecom Review webinar to talk about artificial intelligence, Asia's engine for growth. As I mentioned a little bit earlier, we will be speaking with a whole bunch of amazing speakers who will be sharing with us their experience across different industries as well as across different jurisdictions. I will introduce them in a little bit. But first, perhaps I can ask Mr. Tony A, the CEO of Telecom Review, who is hailing to us from a very, very far different time zone place, to do a welcome address. So Tony, over to you.
Thank you, Mai. I really appreciated your support for moderating this session today. And also, I would like to thank all our speakers who are joining us. I would like to thank all of you. Okay, in this webinar, it's interesting because really when we talk artificial intelligence and the hype for last 2 years in AI, but for Asia, it's very important because it's not AI just a slogan. It's a tool also, an engine for the growth of Asia. Later, for sure, we have very good speaker who will, mostly you are from Asia. Dr. Atsuko, they have a lot of ITU program, how to push for the growth in Asia. And I'm sure she will give us the right update at the latest about this and all of you. Now, I will say thank you, all of you, for joining us. And that's all. I will leave it for you, Mai. Okay? Thanks for me now. I will be out. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony, for welcoming us. And we definitely will be looking forward to some insights specifically from Asia. But also, I know that we do have experience in the panel all over the world, so not just in Asia, but elsewhere as well. We will be speaking a little bit about the region's strong investment in AI. I think that we're looking at a pretty big investment right now. I think it's set to reach about 110 billion by 2028. And I think a lot of people in Asia are very welcoming of artificial intelligence. So I think that we do have some questions about how AI is driving your business and innovation in telecoms. Where is AI or generative AI or agentic AI or XYZ AI is having a lot of significant impact. How exactly is it having significant impact, and how are we harnessing that? How are we improving network performance? How are we looking at the regulatory landscape, and where are the success stories and examples? I think that that's something that we're going to be speaking about today. So as I'm introducing you, I hope that some of the speakers, not some of the speakers, but as I'm introducing the speakers, can I request that when I say your name, do give a quick wave so that people know that it's you. First of all, we have Dr. Atsuko Okuda, the Regional Director at the International Telecommunications Union, ITU. That's her. All right. And Mr. Marko Cetkovic, the Chief Digital Officer at M1. Thank you. Mr. Blums, Pineda, CEO of Kayana and Partner Strategist for PLDT Global Data Management and AI Program. And last but not least, Mr. Massimiliano Baravelli, I practiced that, Head of the AI Department at QuantAzimuth. All right, so we have a bunch of people here who will be sharing with us their experiences. And you can tell already because we've got a telco, we've got two telcos, in fact. We've got head of AI department, and of course, Dr. Okuda is actually looking at regulations at the ITU. So I think that that's a lot of different things that we could chat about. But in the first instance, shall I say that shall I just cover a bit of thing? I'm thinking that you can, I'm not too sure whether you can raise your hands, but there may be a question and answer session that you can have a look at. If you want to ask questions, please drop them in. I will be looking at it as we go along. But let us go straight into the discussion around AI. I would like to spend the first couple of minutes that we have perhaps asking our speakers to introduce themselves, as well as to chat a little bit about the promise of AI in the telecoms industry. You know, what is your role? What is your role with your teams? What have you seen as Asia's sentiments towards embracing AI? What is its impact in the telecom industry in the last couple of years? So trending, what is the promise of AI in the telecoms industry? And perhaps I can ask Dr. Atsuko to speak a little bit about this first, followed by Marko.
Thank you, and good afternoon to everyone. My name is Atsuko Okuda. I am the Regional Director of ITU, International Telecommunication Union, Regional Office for Asia and the Pacific, and I'm based in Bangkok. And for those who may not know ITU well enough, we are the specialized agency of the United Nations for digital technology. And we have three distinctive areas, which are all about telecom. One is the radio communication. As you may know, we have a radio regulation as well as assigning the satellite orbit. And we have a standardization which deals with a lot of new technologies, including AI. And on this particular topic, we have more than 200 standards or recommendations, which I hope will be helpful for developers and companies and ministries to kickstart the development of AI. And we have a development bureau which supports developing countries in accelerating the digital transformation. And I look forward to sharing with you more on what we do in each of these areas and what's the perhaps challenges and opportunities enabled by AI in the telecom sector. Thank you. Back to you, Mai.
Thank you, Dr. Okuda. Marko, how about yourself? What do you see as some of the trends? In the first instance, perhaps introduce yourself and what M1 is doing in this.
Thanks, Mayan. So my name is Marko Cetkovic. I'm the Chief Digital Officer of M1 Limited. M1 is a regional digital services provider and enterprise services and solutions provider. We are well known as a telco company in Singapore, but we also have our Asia Pac, which is a regional enterprise services and solutions provider present in Malaysia, Vietnam, and expanding. So for the last few years, we've seen a lot of hype about the AI and Gen AI. But of course, we all know that AI topic is not new topics to telco. We've been trying more or less successfully in the telco industry is really to transform and to go through the digital transformation over the last decade. And I think this journey will continue in a different shape and form, more focusing on AI and Gen AI use cases in the future. When it comes to M1 specifically, for the last 4 years, our main focus was really becoming a digital native. And with a cloud-first approach when it comes to our digital transformation, we successfully completed our digital transformation, moved all of our assets to the cloud. As part of that, we also implemented that consolidated data lake. And in a way, this presents a strong foundation for us to more easily scale up and build the use cases when it comes to AI and Gen AI. Beside the infrastructure and data, which I believe are still continuing to be a key important pillars for us to really develop successful and sustainable use cases, the third pillar is definitely our people. So last year, we also invested some 14 weeks of time to go through the training, comprehensive training program for all of our digital office employees. This was a combination of different panel sessions, sharing sessions with our partners, internal sharing, and so on and so forth. So I think a lot of hype, but probably the key question that we'll also discuss in the future, in the continuation of this panel, is the use cases and the value creation. And I think we are getting really ready, for that challenge in the future as well.
Thanks, Marko, for that. I think that's definitely, you've hit the nail on the head, because already I see Mr. Virat Patel, who is on our quick Q&A. He's actually asked, can you please share examples of new revenue generating services that telcos have launched using AI? Because we have seen examples of telcos using AI to improve operations and customer service. So I think that everybody is looking for the business ideas. That hold on to your hats, Mr. Virat, because I think we will be speaking about some of the use cases and proof of concepts and business case studies in the second part of this discussion. But definitely, Marko, I hear what you're saying in terms of getting the company itself internally ready for that transformation and that capacity to take on and advocate, I think, for AI is definitely a great foundation that M1 has invested in. Let me turn over to Blums and Massimiliano. I mean, what do you see as the biggest opportunity that AI offers for the telecom industry in Asia? How can it help level the playing field, perhaps within the region with global competitors?
So maybe I'll go first, Massimiliano. So again, my name is Blums Pineda. I'm from the Philippines with Kayana, which is a sort of data platform subsidiary of PLDT, which is the leading telco here. I think to answer the question, I think it's not so much about competing against world leaders. I think it's about being relevant in the markets at which we serve. So for example, in the Philippines, where we've got a very switched on mobile population, we've got enterprises and small and medium enterprises that need that support to get up to speed, right? And they're looking for telcos to go beyond connectivity. They're looking for telcos to begin to not only respond to them better, but also, I think, be able to enable them with new capabilities at scale. And so I think where our company has been using AI, and particularly the parent PLDT, obviously it's a natural evolution of our path in terms of all of the data and big data investments we've done, and driving from that to analytics. I think with AI now, it's really helping accelerate on the automation side and making sure that in some of the real-time use cases that we have around, whether that be on the customer service part in outbound real-time offers, right? Upselling, cross-selling, et cetera, for those that opt in, but trying to make sure we're doing that smartly and not in a shotgun approach. I think we're beginning to see the benefits of mining our data in real time with what AI is able to do. We're able to leverage Gen AI from both a voice and text capability to be able to come up with these offers, but make them also come across as more human, right? And not sacrifice some of the, I guess, the dryness or the artificialness that you get with a purely automated offer. So again, very early days, but I think we're beginning to see the benefits from it, but also more importantly, great feedback from the customer base. So happy to share a bit more about that later.
Thanks, Blums. It sounds very much in line with what Marko was saying earlier. Really, a lot of the benefit right now and the work right now is in the background, working in the company itself to make sure that you have what Marko mentioned is a data lake, but you're also saying that you're mining your own data to make sure that you're actually maximizing that. It sounds like that's very internal and getting ready, I think, to march toward the future. Is that correct?
I think one little tweak is that, and I think this is also happening in M1, of course. I think, we moved from maybe 2 years, ago, where it's really much more on the back end. So a lot of, for example, what happens in network operations, in terms of like field support and all of the back end and back office type things, I think have benefited from AI being embedded in the stacks that we have already. So even without almost lifting a finger, you've got that capability already on tap with each upgrade of that stack. But I think we've maybe lagged a little bit is the processes and the human transformation to take advantage of that, right? To take advantage of that and to maximize that. I think what we're doing now, and I'm sure M1 is doing the same thing as well, is we're now moving to the front of the house. We're moving at where we can leverage this so that we can actually impact how we're touching the customers, their products and services, but also how that total experience is like, making sure like on the service quality, the network quality, and all of those different things. But that at the point in time where it's touching the customer, it's the best that it can be, and we're continuing to push in that direction with the AI capabilities.
Thank you for sharing that. I love what you're saying about AI being embedded in the stack, because a lot of times the technology is just layered on top of it, and you're not actually really properly going through the whole entire stack. If there are any people in the audience who are listening right now who are technical people, I invite you to ask questions that I can't answer, but maybe Blums and Massimiliano possibly could answer, and Marko and Atsuko can also give insight on about really just re-engineering the whole entire stack. But again, I will now pass it over to Massimiliano to share a little bit about what you think is the promise of AI and how we can level the playing field for AI in the telecoms industry, as well as introduce yourself, of course.
Sure. Thank you, Maya. Yes, Massimiliano, I'm the head of the AI for QuantAzimuth. We have a strong presence in the Middle East mostly, but in general also in Asia and a bit in Europe as well. And we work for, we offer a platform, we develop a platform end-to-end from the network traffic until the operator usage, dashboard, etc. for telcos and also law enforcement agencies. So we have two different types of use cases. Today we're going to focus mostly on telcos, but I would say that I worked on AI for the last decade, let's say, and I could see in less than a decade actually, there was a big change. Like in maybe last 2 years, 3 years, there was a huge hype generated from these, OpenAI, Gemini, or all of these companies, which to me also, it was a good thing because it raised awareness of a technology that actually is here since the 90s, like neural networks started in the 90s. But I could see even just 5 years ago, how AI applications were also sometimes not even trusted, I don't know, taken as kind of magical type of things, but now actually are required. So we are trying to develop more and more AI things. And I would say the two main areas or two main effects would be one, the performance, let's say, or the efficiency for operators, etc., like Blums was saying. And the other one is actually the business transformation, because AI can also enable, not only improve efficiency, improve processes, but can also enable new type of markets or businesses. So to me, that's what I'm seeing, a lot of collaborations now from telcos, especially new ones with tech industries, which have a lot of expertise in AI. Telcos have more expertise on their domain. And the match of these two collaboration is also, it's very productive. And I think it's one of the other things that is very important. I think it was already mentioned a bit, is the having an AI native infrastructure. Because the big players now have some legacy, I would say, legacy system that we call industry standard systems, and build AI on top of them require sometimes completely different hardware. You need to tackle things from a different angle. And especially I would say new telcos have a big edge here because they can start and build their infrastructure already AI native. And thanks also to this new hype from the AI, hardware is going to have a reduced cost. It's we could see OpenAI invested billions, and now we can see that other, for example, the DeepSeek invested millions to generate the same type of model, and this is going to exponentially going lower and lower. So it's very important to having a mindset of AI native infrastructure. And there are many, let's say, areas where you can put user experience or security or stuff, but I think that's the most important starting point.
Thanks, Massimiliano. You've touched on a really important point, because a lot of telcos are, I think, I won't say stuck with legacy infrastructure, but infrastructure is always a huge investment, isn't it? I mean, we've invested in 3G, we've invested in 4G, and then now everybody's like, we want 5G, and everybody says, hold on, our amortization schedule for 4G infrastructure has not reached this figure. We've got a 6-year schedule. We're not there yet. And then suddenly we need to build these AI native infrastructure. I think that in this case, there is a rationalization for a lot of the laggards to suddenly have this opportunity to jump forward, because they're going to have to upgrade the infrastructure sooner or later. And given the fact that now that you have to have AI native infrastructure. I think what better time than it is now to jump into this? Are you seeing some of that investment happen?
Of course, I see that like newer players, they are starting from scratch directly with, as I said, with the investment on directly AI type of infrastructure, so GPUs or a type of specific database, vectorized database, etc. But also everyone actually is starting to change a bit now. Like the biggest systems that are already well functioning are going step by step. So a small portion, like they will start most likely with the new use cases that can be done kind of independently directly with AI. It's the best bet. So you will have your new business, new monetization, let's say, and you can directly go with AI that your system couldn't provide. And for the legacy part, it's a step-by-step refactor, would say, in a technical term. It's a refactoring. Has to be slow because doing it too fast can have the opposite result, like not efficiency, but inefficiency. So that's what I'm seeing.
Thanks, Massimiliano. Now, Adil Raza had asked, what exactly does it mean to have AI native infrastructure? Can you be more specific? So I think that, Adil, I hope that Massimiliano's most recent response actually does answer some of that question. If not, Massimiliano, if you want to expound on this a little bit later, we can always come back to it. We have Darren also, who has asked, given that AI is still in its infancy stage, how are regulations and governance shaping out across countries in Asia? And how do these compare to the framework in the US or Europe? Does it impact actual deployment? I'm not too sure who would be well positioned to answer this, but I think in the first instance, I will ask Dr. Atsuko to answer this when it comes to your turn to check, because I think the next question and the next part of this webinar that we're going to go into is going to delve deeper into some of the use cases and the ideas and concepts for case studies, good practices, best practices, and any practical advice that you have for how AI is driving the development of new business models. So I'm going to ask a couple of questions, and then we'll go to Marko, Blums, and Massimiliano. How is AI driving the development of new business models and accelerating growth in Asia? Can you share from your experience or your people that you've worked with successful use cases on how AI is developing telcos in Asia, enhance customer experience, improve networks, or some other use case that you might have encountered? What role does AI play in facilitating the rollout and optimization of 5G networks or other kinds of networks that you've encountered? And how can AI help telecom companies to develop new revenue streams, which I think will answer Virat's question. We have an anonymous attendee who's also asked, how are telcos working in silos developing and deploying AI, or is it more collaborative in the region? I think that we're seeing quite a lot of people work together in terms of bilateral relationships between companies. But I think that just by definition, companies will work in their own corporate silo in the first instance before working more collaboratively. But perhaps in the first instance, I will pass the time to Marko to give us an idea of some of the case studies or proof of concepts of business case applications that you've encountered.
Man, thanks a lot. Maybe I think we have enough time to have a bit of more discussion about a few points that were raised before. So I'll maybe just back a bit and reflect on what Massimiliano shared. And I think it's completely correct that in a way you can't replace the hard work in implementing the good foundation for the AI. And I think that's a very important thing that we need to come back to as well. If you are building this as a side gig on top of your legacy or on top of your existing channels, I think the value and the scalability will be very limited. And I think that's where Massimiliano is going to when it comes to the AI native or AI supportive infrastructure. This is something really about a compatibility, about really availability of the tools and capabilities on your existing infrastructure, and how you're actually able to integrate this and propagate this to different touch points, or integrate this within existing processes and ways of working, right? Again, as I said, we invested a lot, to transform our digital stack, and I think that's a good starting point for us. But looking in the future, the use cases that I think are going to be quite important for us in telco industry, and also in a way I've read recently a Gartner research as well showing some similar insights. When it comes to the value and visibility, probably at top over there, I think it's something that is around the customer experience when it comes to the customer-facing agents, and also some agentic AI that can actually enhance the customer as well in their self-support. In a very basic way, I think this is the continuation of our chat virtual assistant, our voice virtual assistant, and in the future, video virtual assistant as well. So one part of that is really how can we use the Gen AI and maybe a little bit more specific agentic focus Gen AI models to deliver the expectations and actually embed the AI as a part of our expanded team. Of course, this is a big change for our operating model, and we need to see how we can actually change the roles and responsibilities of our existing teams to make AI or AI agents a part of it, right? That's one part of this. The other part is definitely, in my mind, on the marketing productivity. We already have some very successful POCs and tools that we implemented on the EDM side of things. And we've been talking forever in telco, and we've been doing that, like micro-segmentation and hyper-personalization is part and parcel of telco. Now, how can we be more efficient in delivering the personalized content to our customers? And of course, having a Gen AI video generating or prompt-based video generating tools to our marketeers, we can really empower them and really shorten the time to market as well in the EDM and other channels as well. The third thing that I feel is going to be very interesting is on the enterprise services, especially when it comes to the order fulfillment and a lot of automation and a lot of good things I think we can do in this complex order handling by leveraging the AI and Gen AI functionalities. I think it's really also a continuation of the traditional RPA, and I think that we can do much more now, also enhancing a bit of on the Gen AI side of things. So these are some examples. Maybe one last thing that I would like to add, definitely when it comes to the telcos, the most of our queries, they are actually about the bills. And our customers are usually calling us asking, why is my bill like this? Why do I have this charge or that charge? Working with our vendors, to Blums' point, especially to the vendors that are actually on the billing side, and enhancing that with the front-end capabilities, I think we can also solve that riddle as well and see how we can actually automate or have a bit more AI agents to self-serve or support our customers when it comes to bill queries as well in the future. So this would be some examples more in the efficiency side and customer experience side.
Thanks, Marko. It does sound like we're all going to get pretty much better service and better customization of things, whether or not we're an individual customer or whether we are an enterprise customer.
Yeah, I think the ultimate goal for me, Mayan, is really to develop a CDO bot. So in 5 to 10 years, I can completely take some nice vacation and someone else can do mine.
First, you have to have your cloud native infrastructure, and you got to build all of that. You got to talk to Blums also about how to be data mining your own database, etc. I think that's definitely a best case and best use case. I think that if you don't mind, I'm going to push it a little bit further because I think that we do have people in the audience who are encouraging, or rather are hungry for any use cases that go slightly beyond just the efficiency, but are looking at revenue generation. Because right now we are seeing efficiencies. Would you say that the hyper-personalization and micro-segmentation is better, and therefore it actually increases that ability to generate revenue for both enterprise as well as the consumer side?
Yeah, I think this is touching on the margins. It's not really a new revenue stream, but I think we can get better in our models, in the segmentation model, personalizations model. I think even on the product configuration, there is some idea that we can actually use the AI and Gen AI to hyper-customize the products as well, which is another thing that is a bit lower on the feasibility, a bit high on the value, but lower on the feasibility scale as well. But what I think the audience is asking is more about the new revenue streams. And for me, this will really come down to the partnerships and more to some kind of solutions that look more like a marketplace, where you can actually expose the capabilities in a bit organized way and allow your customers to use the various Gen AI capabilities to their own daily life, if I may say so. So I think this is somewhere where there might be some opportunities, a bit early to say, and I think we are still leveraging different applications as well for our everyday life. So more and more customers are getting used to this, and I'm sure in the future this will become a very much a need, a necessity for our daily life as well.
Thanks for sharing that. I do see that this ability for telcos to provide a playground is actually a new sort of service that people are playing around with. I mean, I think regulatory sandboxes, for example, just first came up to people's thinking and ideas a couple of years ago when we first started having regulatory sandboxes. And then now people started to realize that actually, especially for new technology and emerging technology like AI, it would be great if, for example, a telco could give a safe space to play around with for their enterprise customers or their consumer side customers to be working and playing around with some of the AI tools that are still available. So I'm not too sure whether anybody has really put this forward as a solid sort of product just yet. But the partnerships definitely that you mentioned, Marco, and maybe I can turn it to Blums right now. I think the partnerships are really where some of the innovation and exciting things are going to happen. I'm going to toss the time now to Blums to see whether you have ideas to share about customer experiences or AI facilitating new products and services or proof of concepts. Over to you, Blums.
Yes, yeah, no, thanks. And yeah, really, really great points that Marco shared. I mean, I absolutely agree that like partners play a big role here because I think they're able to really bring together and bring to life what the possibilities are with AI, right? Of course, it then gets everyone from my principals to our clients excited, right? And then they think you spend this money, sign this check, and it's all there. But then what I think that then uncovers is this domino effect of all of the underinvestment you've done in data, for example, over the past couple of years, all of the underinvestment you've done on the cloud side, like it's a domino effect in terms of you're not really set up to get there. But I think what that then does is that we're seeing quite a revival of all of the backlog of things around data and analytics, but then it's being architected so that it can serve a much more real-time, low latency type application that you need if you're leveraging agentic, right, at the front lines with the customer. So literally, you have to crawl before you walk. You have to walk before you run. I think a lot of folks, us included, are really getting to do that as you reach the limits, right? Similar to F1, right? If you're driving, you have to the top speed is when you're at the edge and at the limit of the physics of the car. But I think to get there, you've got to get there at a bit of a steady pace. You can't just go there like a rocket. And I think that's what folks are finding out, some quite painfully. But I think the sooner that we get behind it and look to drive that roadmap, then the more we'll see the benefits. I think what's been helpful from at least the cases on our side is that there is a lot of ready-to-go AI, as I mentioned, in the stacks that we have, right? And so that already can be untapped just as long as we get the data into the right shape. I think on the more forward, more bleeding edge, more leading edge type stuff, that's where it gets really interesting. But it's exciting because you're actually reinventing the way a customer interacts with you, right? And you're changing the way they may order something or configure something or upgrade to a different package. You're changing that whole dynamic of how a product is sold. Maybe now it's bought, not sold. Maybe now it's discovered and bought, right, and not sold. And so I think that can result in dramatic changes in customer experience, right? Where they can actually have a great advisor, almost like think about your experiences at an Apple store, right? I mean, that with the right type of at the Genius Bar, the right type of staff with you, it's a great experience. You actually like spending the money, right? And so I think it's going to be the same as we get to AI. There's a lot of possibilities, right? The technology's there, but I think it's really, do we have the right plumbing? Do we have the right infrastructure? Do we have the right course to get that going? Start asking the questions. The sooner you start asking those questions, the sooner you'll get them answered and get moving and capturing value.
There is a saying, I think, make haste slowly. And I think that that's something which you're sharing, that you're seeing and observing in the market. So I absolutely think that that's really important because, as I mentioned, I think that we are dealing with telcos which are big owners of legacy infrastructure that do require a lot of heavy investment if you want to upgrade and do anything. So making haste slowly is a real thing. I want to pick up on something which really interesting, which you said also, which is the revival of the data demand. Because I do see this. I actually see this as a core thing that people are doing and spending a lot of time on, because we've always struggled with like 10,000 I mean, I'll give a really banal example, 10,000 Excel sheets of how many pivot tables you have, and you just need to make it more efficient, and you just can't do it. And then suddenly along comes AI, and you're like, hey, I can actually plug this in and do it faster. Do it, not just do it faster, but do it better. And I think that's some of the inverted commas old new products or new old products that have come up. Are you seeing that as well, Blums?
Yeah, I mean, in pockets for sure. So for example, if you think about how, again, if you think about your typical NOC or network operations center from 10, 15, 20 years ago, there would be a lot of these side of desk Excel sheets that you're using to model and even plan the network, right? What's great is that with a lot of the newer planning tools that they've upgraded that, then suddenly you have a different type of DNA of people in those NOCs, right? There's a lot less spent in terms of trying to crank through all of like the BTSs of data and all of the stuff from the RAN, all of the stuff from the packet core, and try to figure that out mechanically after. Like think about like the Human Figures movie. That's what it looked like 10, 20 years ago. Now I think a lot of that is a little bit more built in, so people can actually be thinking through the solution and innovating, like truly innovating. So what's great is that a lot of that's happening on the back end. I think we're now seeing that move to the front end. But of course, there's a big difference between, we get wowed by, wow, it's such a great speech to text and text to speech type interaction, like those engines are so robust, etc. And then you suddenly realize, I don't have the data in the right format to come up with the trees, right, and the forks to be able to even inform what that script should be and anticipate what are the 3 or 4 scenarios a customer would be looking for once they start off a sentence with this. So you've got to now move back, and you've got to go either relearn and bring that up from your data, or make a strong form hypothesis and build forward. So that's, I think, what's preventing some of the use cases from being much more getting to a commercial scale on that side. Whereas on the back end, I think it's definitely much farther ahead.
Thanks, Blums. I do take that very, very, very seriously, this idea of iteration. I do see Marko, I think, nodding his head just now also. I'm not too sure whether that's the same with M1 or so. But I do see that it is a lot of iteration at this point in time, just making sure that we know what we're doing. And there are things which I think do need constant improvement. I mean, we all want network optimization, right? We just throw it off to the algorithm and like let the algorithm do its work. But then maybe that could be a better way to do it, and a more efficient way of doing it. And I think that needs to be iterated as well. So I think that right now that learning and that discussion and that churning through, trying to figure out what we know is definitely, we're in this space right now. I want to turn to Massimiliano to speak a little bit about this, because I'm not too sure. I mean, from the telco side, maybe that's true, but I'm not too sure from the programmer side and the implementer side whether or not you're seeing the same kind of concepts and business case applications and practices are being put in place. What do you think, Massimiliano?
Yes, absolutely. Actually, Blums was talking about partnership with tech. So we are the tech that partners with telcos. So I can talk from the other side, but we share the same goals, okay? Because we are closely partner with telcos to obtain exactly what they need to enhance their workflow and improve their business. So I can see exactly the same thing. I can share with you some, actually even some specific real life use cases that we had worked on, or some visions that we have received, or some things that we are still working in progress. But one thing that I noticed, just to start, is that the concept, as actually where you were saying, Mayan, about the plug and play of AI. So this is not usually the case. Like it's not like I want AI on these to improve it and automatically it will improve it. I think that there is a bit of misconception about it, because these LLMs now are those that leads the market. So it looks like they can do everything. You just ask a question, it can do everything. But the reality is that we are moving actually towards another direction, which is using this LLM as an interface human machine. But then you have smaller agents that are very targeted to a specific task, and they have to be developed for a very specific task in a very specific way. And it can change slightly depending on what's the use case. The good thing is that then if a use case is the same, regardless of the data, it will be good enough for any different data. So that's the power of AI. But the use case has to be very targeted. So that's the one first thing. So it's not plug and play. Regarding, for example, use cases. So what did we work on, for example? So we had a request for traffic or let's say website categorization for parental blocking, the parental control. So that's one example that AI can provide. You can go through the content of the website, gives you some tags or labels or classes or categories, whatever everyone calls in a different way, but identify what the website is about and provide it even dynamically, even in real time. You can do it in a if you have a good infrastructure that can handle it, but you can do it even in real time. And we were discussing about hyper personalization. So you can say, for example, a specific subscriber can have limited access or no access to gambling, for example, if it's a minor or something, it can be provided directly from the service provider. So this is an example of AI implementation. And it's also kind of not a new business, but for sure a more customized way. That's why it's a hyper customization. We have requests also about security as a service, for example. That actually could be a new business. So provide protection for DDoS attacks or threat, any cybersecurity. Let's say that now I don't want to go too much into detail because I'm a bit technical. I go too much in detail. So I would just mention it that it's actually something. Actually, the whole network as a service type of business is something that can be provided. So they can, I don't know, for example, especially with 5G. A corporation or a company can rent a slice of a 5G network instead of having to handle their own network. They can rent a 5G network just for them, and the telco can provide it as a cloud network, and that could be generated by AI because you could choose what you want. You want IoT, you want gaming, you want whatever you want. It can be handled by AI. So it's kind of a new business thing. Or regarding efficiency, for example, we have like the predictive maintenance of the system or the troubleshooting. So by building some agentic AI, so a mixture of LLMs and more classical statistical or machine learning or deep learning type of algorithms, you can monitor your system for possible failures. It can predict that the system could have a problem in that specific area or that specific time. And you can troubleshoot, for example, with the LLM interactively. So instead of having, to try to understand what's going on, the chatbot, your assistant, will help you go through it. And actually, that's I would say a good improvement from AI, from the new LLMs, because one of the issues of the old, let's say, classical, let's call it classical, even though it's less than a decade ago, AI was the explainability. It was very difficult to explain. We know the output, so I'm telling you there is a problem, but I can't tell what was the pattern that AI used to detect the problem, what was this thought process, if we can call it that way, the reasoning. And now LLM can actually explain and help operators to troubleshoot. And this is another example that it's implemented and it doesn't require that much of a additional investment to make something like that. It's mostly software and just a small hardware. And there are actually current type of implementation, but we have also seen visions of what we want to go, where we want to go, such as smart cities with these edge computing 5G, and the use case of that is, for example, the national emergency management. Telco can absolutely help and provide a service for national emergency management and smart cities, because when you need very low latency AI predictions, 5G edge computing is very, very good. And I don't know, we thought already, we actually have a small development, some use cases about, we have emergency vehicles or police vehicles to find not only the best path, but also handles the traffic lights, for example, to have the fastest path. So it's, or for example, detecting possible potential missing people in a natural disaster. Or adjusting network performance depending on the natural disaster that's happening, so to ensure that that site will have the maximum coverage possible. So these are all type of use cases that we are working on, or we worked on so far. And I think that if we understand how AI can be used, this agentic or this small task with the control unit, you can think about many other, anyone can think about many other implementation or applications.
Thanks, Massimiliano. I think that the ideas and the use cases that you've shared are extremely valuable. So I really hope that, Virat, some of the use cases are actually useful to you, because you have been asking about new revenue generating services. You've also asked about new revenue generating services we launched through partnerships. I think that's commercial information, so I don't think that anybody's actually willing to share that at this point in time. But I do think that, Massimiliano, the examples that you shared are both new as well as not new. So they're not new because it's not like we haven't been doing security as a service, for example. It's not like we haven't been doing predictive maintenance of a system, but have we been doing it better? One of the projects that I'm currently working on with the Internet Society is actually a website analyzer. Basically, we plug in a URL, and then we want to get advice. We want the page to give advice on what should you do, therefore, to secure your website better. If it does analyze and come up with something that says, well, you should be using more secure networks, for example. And I thought that that was a fantastic example of where we already have some sort of a service like this, and I think we can cobble together the advice, but AI can definitely do it a lot better and more efficient. You also mentioned a little bit about the classical AI being able to do explainability. The LLM can now explain what it's doing. We have a question from Abchul Manchanayake, who asked, can we use it for project governance? I'm not too sure whether you can answer that or not, because I think that a lot of people are keen on making sure that they can fulfill the governance component of explainability, which, by the way, we're going to be going to governance after this to Dr. Okuda, but perhaps, Massimiliano, can we use AI for project governance?
Yes, but it's a very, let's say, domain-based knowledge. Okay, so again, AI is not a full plug-and-play thing. So yes, it can explain, but you need to know exactly what you're doing. Let's put it that way. And that's why I think domain expertise is very important as well. So it depends on what your project is. Maybe it's depending on the simplicity, the complexity. For example, the telco world as a whole, network, even just starting from the network, the very first part, it's a very complicated and dynamic thing. So yes, you can use for project governance and to have your, let's say there are like systems like you can feed an LLM some specific documents and make it only reply with only those type of documents. So you can definitely do it. The more complex it is, the more work requires for you to put on.
As long as you've got the back end all set up ready, you can deploy as and when you wish, and you can build as and when and whatever it is that you like, I think. So I think that definitely enhances your point. I'm going to turn a little bit to the regulation side of things, and I guess regulation and compliance go hand in hand in telco world. And I think that this question goes to Dr. Okuda, because Darren did ask, and I'm actually going to be asking about best practices in regulation. How are the AI policies? How have you seen the AI policies evolving? What progress have we seen in terms of regulation and implementation across the telecom industry? Darren's question was really about Asia versus Europe. How does this impact actual deployment? I am seeing that the regulations tend to be a little bit more legislation focused in Europe, and then it's a little bit more guidelines and frameworks out here in Asia. But that's my own personal opinion. Dr. Okuda, what have you been noticing?
Thank you for this very important question. As you know, there is no one solution for everyone. And this is the topic that evolves very quickly. And one thing that we are cognizant of, especially in Asia and the Pacific, is the fact that some segment, of course, of AI companies are moving very fast, but the rest of the society plus government may or may not be catching up fast enough to be able to make the policy and regulation or legislation inclusive and meaningful. So as you know, ITU organizes a lot of events to make sure that the awareness of both positive and challenges are addressed, and as many people as possible are aware and can participate in this discussion. So at ITU, we were supported by Australia to, number one, to do the analysis of ASEAN countries to understand what kind of policy and regulatory frameworks they have. And two, are they implemented and in what way? And three, what kind of capacity is needed for regulators as well as government officials to really address all those challenges that you just mentioned? And on top of that, we want to make sure that it's not only government regulating or deciding what to do, but the society as a whole, because they will be impacted, right? Women, ethnic minorities, and people who are living in underserved communities, they all should be able to have a say if something doesn't go well. So at ITU, in addition to the discussions which involve standard, and I'll be happy to come back to this. What are the global discussions, global governance framework that we are talking about? We are also talking about the country level, on the ground support to make sure that everyone is involved. And in this process, we were extremely happy to work with not only the government and ministry, telecom regulators, but also academia, industry, and civil society, so that we are all on the same page. I think this part may or may not be understood, very widely, but I think it is really, really crucial. If, for example, I live in Bangkok, and there's an AI machine that catches the traffic offenders, which is very good. But if something doesn't go well, whom should I complain to? Is it the university which develops this AI system, or the police, or someone else? So I just want all of us to have this, holistic view to be able to say, yes, this is good. Yes, this policy is good. So we are at the same time being involved in the development of such inclusive, comprehensive, future-looking policies all across Asia and the Pacific. By the way, we cover 39 countries. Within the whole framework of digital transformation, AI is part of it. There are many other strategies, for example, innovation, that are covered by the digital transformation strategy, and we support as part of their digital transformation journey. But I'll be happy to talk about other sides of the story, if we still have time, of people who are unconnected and underconnected. And I think this is a huge issue for Asia and the Pacific. As you know, ITU estimates that 2.6 billion people are still unconnected. And when we say unconnected, the definition covers the people who haven't used the internet for the past 3 months. There's a possibility that people are using 4 months ago. So that number could vary, but still it's a significant number of people who are not connected, which means that when you develop an AI algorithm or model, they are not included. And it's a huge issue for us. So we have a very huge connectivity initiative to connect the Pacific Island countries, connecting the villages so that their data can make the AI solutions more realistic and inclusive. For example, how many countries can possibly reliably say that if I ask the AI machine why people are dying in your country, right? Can the AI machine or AI algorithm, produce a credible answer if, let's say, 2.6 billion people, and many of them are in developing countries, are not connected, and their data is not included in the training data. So I think these are all connected. It's a telecom issue, interestingly, and also the AI issue, because we want to make sure that the AI services will not serve only small segment of society in cities, but it will benefit everyone. Thank you. I'm not sure if I answered your question. I'll be happy to talk more about it. Thank you. Back to you.
I think Darren was also interested to hear some opinions about whether there were differences between Asia and the governance and regulations that are appearing in Asia as well as in Europe, and how it has affected the rollout of telco services. So, Dr. Okuda, I'm going to give you first right of response, but perhaps I can open this up also to Marko, Blums, and Massimiliano if you've got opinions about the governance approach and the compliance, I guess, requirements that are coming out and how it impacts you as a telco or in your work. But Dr. Okuda, perhaps, what do you think that there is a difference? Are there significant differences enough for us to be aware of?
Sorry, the question is to me?
Yes, Dr. Okuda. Is Darren was asking, is there a difference between the regulations that you're seeing and the guidelines that you're seeing from Asia? Is it different from Europe? How is it impacting the telcos, for example?
Definitely. And if I can share with you, to me, the major difference is the fact that Asia and Pacific is still connecting people versus the communities, markets, which are already connected and ready to go with AI. So I think Asia and the Pacific, especially government and telecom the regulators are tackling both issues at the same time to make sure that we connect and of course we protect them, and at the same time taking into account AI and these emerging technologies. So the dynamics and drivers of AI policy development, I think, is different. And I also think that the ecosystem where AI policies or solutions are being developed would be different, because I think Asia and the Pacific has perhaps more, how can I say, I wouldn't say communal approach, but I think for them, inclusion perhaps would have added value and emphasis to it. But I also want to share with you these very interesting challenges plus opportunities and what it means when you have to connect and there is an AI as an opportunity, right? It merges in a way that we haven't seen anywhere else. So I can give you an example, and I hope that you find it interesting from a telecom perspective as well as AI. We are connecting one very far away island in Kiribati, and Kiribati is a country which is very vast across the international date line. And one of the islands is being connected, by the way, with satellite as we speak. And our expert went to talk to these newly connected community members. And we asked, what do you want to do? They don't have a very clear idea on what internet can bring to them, but this expert showed them the ChatGPT. So he said, oh, ask anything. This ChatGPT on my mobile phone can answer you anything. So one community member said, oh, I need to apply for something. Can this ChatGPT write an application letter for me? So they experimented as they connect and as they start using the AI, and they came up, this ChatGPT came up with a beautiful application. And of course, community members didn't understand who's writing it. Doesn't matter. But the fact that they are really connecting immediately, connected, and they're using AI and found a beautiful symbiosis in a remote island of Kiribati. I have so many of these beautiful stories. I'll be very, very happy. And I think the telecom operators should be really happy to hear these stories of how AI is found useful in remote and underconnected communities. So I'm not sure if I digressed from the main question you wanted to ask, but I have to say Asia and the Pacific is different.
Okay, I hope, Darren, that answers some of your questions. I think that this also answers this Apcho Chanayake, who is from Sri Lanka. They've actually said that our government is going through a lot of global digitalization, and was asking a little bit about how AI can help this initiative with open digital architecture. I think that a lot of the AI models right now are open source. So I think that what Dr. Okuda has just shared is definitely going to be fairly useful to the work that you're doing in Sri Lanka. I'm going to open up this particular discussion around regulations and compliance to the rest of our speakers to feel free to chime in. Do you have ideas or thoughts around the differences between Asia and Europe, or in your own experience, is it too heavy, too much, too little? What's going on?
So maybe I'll just chime in a little bit here. So internally, we are also developing something that we call 10 commandments for using the AI. So we are trying to kind of provide some kind of directions for the internal users and for the enterprise, as well as we are developing and exploring these AI use cases. What are the guardrails for us when we are moving in that direction? But looking a bit more on the regulations, but also maybe global economy scale, I think there are 3 aspects that definitely will reshape a lot with the AI. The first one is sustainability. And I think the sustainability, we see the expansion of AI data center is really requiring the supply of the components at a scale, and there is a lot of challenges over there as well. The other part of the sustainability definitely is the energy, and I think we've seen also different attempts really to provide sufficient amount of energy, for the amount of the AI data centers and that expansion. So I think sustainability is definitely one of the aspects that will definitely need to be continuously addressed over the period of time. The second part of this is safety, and I think Dr. Atsuda quite nicely explained this with the example for the Bangkok traffic offender as well. How can we ensure the safety of the customers as well? I think the safety can be also in terms of potential frauds with the deep fake and different other ways, how we need to protect and make sure that our customers are safe when we are implementing the AI solutions. And of course, the third part of this is security as well. And I think security goes in both directions. From the defense side, a much more of capabilities we can actually implement on the defense side with a more secure AI-based solutions, but also on the attack side as well. The IT security, but also even national security will need to change and adopt really to this new challenge. So I think there's a lot of things that will need to be reconsidered, discussed, and changed on the way forward when it comes to the AI challenges.
Thanks, Marko. I definitely think that those are things that are very much actually put telcos in the center of a lot of the crosshairs of a lot of different agencies in the government, right? Suddenly you've got what used to be telco intercept. Suddenly you've got the whole, intermediary liability thing coming up again and saying that, well, now you are responsible for scams, you are responsible for cybercrime, because everything is just coming through the pipes that you're delivering. And I think that that's a very heavy responsibility to do. Virat again asked a little bit about what are telcos specifically doing to protect us consumers and SMEs from cybercrime. And I think that type of that type of expectation that's being placed onto telcos, I think we do need to see a little bit more shared responsibility between all the parties that are responsible. I whenever it comes to cybersecurity, I like to tell the story about my mother. So my mother, I always tell her, Mom, you actually have to have a very secure password, and you have to make sure that you protect it properly. Because I go to her house and she has her screen there, and she has a little post-it note, and on that post-it note is her password, and it's stuck onto the computer screen. So I said, Mommy, you have got to make sure that the password is more secure because this is not good. So she said, okay, sure, no problem. So the next time I come visit her, her password is no longer, the post-it is no longer on the screen. So I was like, okay, that's very, very good. So she said, come, I show you. My password is underneath the laptop, underneath the keyboard. So she had it in a more secure location. But how can you blame the telco if that's the thing that happens, right? And no matter how much how many regulations you put on top of the telcos, that's not actually going to solve a user problem. So I think that we need to have a little bit more discussion around the shared responsibility of different liabilities that come up. I mean, product liability for AI definitely is one of those regulations which a lot of people are looking at. The EU has come up with the AI product directive. So I think that the guardrails that you're talking about, the security on the defense side, the national security side, I think, and sustainability as well, those are, I would say, more obligatory requirements, I think, are something which are going to come up more and more as we continue to talk about AI, particularly around the energy use of AI. But let me pause there because we're going to go into the last section of our discussion for about 20-25 minutes, where we'll talk a little bit about the challenges and looking forward into the future. What exactly are we looking at when it comes to how telcos and related industries are adopting AI? What are the challenges? Can we overcome them? And what exactly are the areas in which AI is transforming the industry in Asia and the impact on economies? There are questions also around from Adil around what the low-hanging fruits to begin leveraging limited resources. I think we've already answered that question, Adil, around the optimization of existing products and services. So I'm just going to consider that as an answer. But again, before we go to that final section of our discussion, I want to go to the audience side of things, where I've actually given up a poll where we're asking 4 questions, right? And let's see where the audience is responding, right? Which region will experience the most rapid growth in AI development in the coming years? Asia, Middle East, Europe, North Africa. And out of everybody who's polled, it looks like most people believe that Asia is going to experience the most rapid growth in AI development. So I don't know whether we're polling people in Asia, so therefore we think our region's the best. But hey, I'm also Asian, so I'm happy with this response. Question number 2, what is the primary motivation for AI adoption in Asia? And here we have a little bit more of a mixed response between 2 of the 4 responses. Cost optimization and efficiency, which we've spoken about, that's the top one at 44%. We've got people also believing that driving digital transformation is the second primary motivation for AI adoption. And I think that that's something which is definitely something that our speakers have spoken a little bit about. Cost optimization and efficiency. Enhancing consumer experience is the third, and gaining a competitive edge is the fourth response that our participants have been responding to. And number 3, what do you believe is the biggest benefit of AI adoption in the telco industry? Most people thought that cost reduction and operational optimization was number 1, followed by improved network efficiency. And then there was a bit of a mixed bag between enhanced consumer experience, accelerating 5G rollout, and innovation. And I'm going to ask our panelists to respond to any of these opinions after I cover the last one. What is the biggest barrier telcos or tech companies face when adopting AI in Asia? And we've got very close. Number 1, integration with existing infrastructure, which is Massimiliano's point, I think, earlier about being AI native infrastructure, and lack of skilled AI talent, which I've heard come up again and again and again in different platforms and discussions. Regulatory and ethical concerns is number 3, and high implementation cost is the last barrier. So I'm going to ask our participants, our panelists, do you have any responses to some of these opinions that are being held by our amazing audience right now? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Mostly?
Yeah.
Oh, Dr. Okuda, please you don't even need to put up your hand. Just unmute yourself and
Thank
speak.
you. I'm just testing this functionality. So In terms of the costs, I mentioned that ITU and I'm pretty sure other standard setting organizations have recommendations and standards. And I believe that instead of starting from scratch, there are already proven methods and best practices in integrating AI, especially machine learning, into analyzing the networks as well as enterprise size of telecommunication. And for example, ITU has recommendations on, evaluating the intelligence level as well as reference architecture and how to integrate into future networks. So I hope that these resources, which are available already, will reduce the cost and the time of developing the enterprise size side of the AI. But we also have customer side AI recommendations on health, education, disaster management, and agriculture, and so forth. And they are also customizable and easily transferable AI solutions such as health. This is what we are also recommending. If AI can understand and identify cancer or TB or any of these diseases, I mean, that can be used anywhere, right? So that can be transferable. Why don't we look at what can be used, what can be used, which is already developed elsewhere? So I hope that we can now move on to these existing resources, solutions, and the architecture, which could be immediately useful. And if I can also answer first of your question, I think this is my personal opinion, we didn't do the survey. I think the consumer confidence on related to data privacy and confidentiality, I think will be key. We tend to look at data and of course we can try and see what can be developed, but when it's commercialized and rolled out, I think people will be a little bit worried that, okay, did I agree to share this information to be used for AI development and so forth? So I think that will continue to be perhaps a bit of a sticking point between the providers and the users. Thank you. Back to you.
Would anyone else like to respond to any of the results that our audience has polled to give us?
Maybe just I think I wanted to pick up on what Dr. Okuda mentioned. I think definitely on the governance, at least within our company, where we're feeling it is exactly that, where we're having to really understand just what are the guardrails from a governance and a privacy standpoint, because we want to make sure we don't overstep it. As you, I guess, hyper use the available data and the analytics from there, you want to make sure that you're not getting too far ahead of yourself and using it not for legitimate purposes, etc. So I think there's a lot of work right now that we're doing to review how we're doing data sharing, especially when we're talking to partners. Our data now is much more attractive to a lot of outside parties, but we have to be very careful about the partnerships we sign and what we agree to, etc. Even as we're co-developing or developing products, right, the new services, like how are we using usage data, personal data that's been entrusted to us. So I think that's always going to be a key thing as you leverage a lot more data, especially in this time of AI. I think the other part is, I think as a telco, right? Again, so when you think about this, and I'd be curious what Marko's view on this is. Back to Dr. Okuda's example around ChatGPT for the first time in a newly connected Asia Pacific island or whatever, right? It's almost like from 10 years ago with the internet, a YouTube video, or even before that with the internet email, right? So you talk about these generational breakthroughs that quite frankly will disappear. People won't talk about them anymore, including AI, because it's so pervasive in how people are using it in the interfaces of their phones, in all of the processes that they touch with their daily lives. And so you then think about, is the role of telco again going to become still a dumb pipe, right? in that type of an interaction, right? People remember the ChatGPT experience, not the telco that provided it. So you're an enabler of all of these different things. So I think there's really a lot of hard work, quite frankly, that is in our plates to stay relevant. And again, I think what Marko mentioned around privacy, security, all of these things that people take for granted, they take it for granted because we do our job. So we have to do our job, we have to do it well, right? And I think that enables then a lot more of the fringe cases and potentially value to both individuals, small businesses, large corporates that we can do going forward. It maybe will allow them to be more trusting of, if we're the custodian of their data, how that data is used, right? To inform and hyper-personalize and make their experience better, to develop products and services priced appropriately to make their experiences better and deliver value. So yeah, I just wanted to add on like those couple of points.
So, Blums, I think you touched on one interesting point that we haven't discussed yet, and I think it's really about how do we change our expectations and our behavior to adjust to the new technologies. And there is always a lot of resistance, a lot of hesitation when it comes to these new technologies. And I think for me, my hobby is a bit of music. So I know that we've always, like in 90s and 2000s, there was always the discussion that electronic music is not really music. A DJ is not really a musician. You know, we always like, you know, the old style, like a rock and roll with a real instrument, that's the real music. But it's not true, really. This is just a new ways and new tools to produce and then to actually make a music. And you can have a beautiful music being done in various different ways. The most important thing is the product that you get at the end. And I think with the Gen AI, there is a bit of hesitation. And it's quite a lot of times I can hear that people will put a remark that say, it's not done by Gen AI. I've done this research and this is, here you are, please review. I didn't use Gen AI. I don't think that's relevant at all. I think even more we should actually use Gen AI as much as possible. There are beautiful libraries of Gen AI for different use cases that can solve very different specialized problems. And we should actually explore and learn and get acclimatized to that more and more. So I think that encouragement and that like really being open and then explore this and get used to that as a new tool, as a new ways of working and new ways of living is going to be very important for us, while we are also finding the safe, secure, and sustainable ways, you know, to scale that as well.
I think that's a great segue into the next, our final section of this discussion, which is really around the challenges and the impact of AI on the future. And it sounds like, Marko, your opinion is that, hey, maybe we should start looking at ourselves in the first instance and stop saying, hey, that, you know, we need to reconfigure everything. And we should really be looking at ourselves in the first instance, especially when it comes to our how we're receiving and using some of the AI bits and pieces. Let me go to Blums, Massimiliano, Dr. Okuda, and then Marko to just round us up. You know, what are the key challenges that you feel are facing the telcos and the tech industry when adopting AI? How can we overcome them? And you know, do you see it as a positive force? Are we seeing AI transforming the telecom industry in Asia? What is going to be the economic impact around Asia?
Yeah, so maybe I can get started. I'll pick up the first part of that question, maybe around. I think it's important to get started, right? I think for some folks, what is that level of getting started? I think it's only then will you really rubber hits the road, what value are sort of we're delivering. I think from that standpoint, there was a question in the chat earlier around how are telcos across the region cooperating. That's, I think, where there is some actual cooperation, where people are okay to share case studies, especially across countries. Maybe not your next door neighbor competitor. I don't think Singtel's going to be talking to Marko anytime soon, right? But I think across borders, when you have chief network officers and CTOs talking to each other and sharing those journeys, I think forums like this are a great way to bring that together. But I think it's important to get started. It's important to reach out to folks that are like Massimiliano and his firm, right? That are at that leading edge, that can do like all of that specialized work and see what they can do for you. But it's important to get started and put a stake in the ground, because it's in those experiments that you start this flywheel, right? And it's in that flywheel as people then get to see like what's possible out there. They get hear the feedback from customers. We get higher NPS from maybe millennial customers, digital native customers that would prefer to be on chat with you than talking to your call centers, right? You're able to see higher sales from chatbot assisted or AI assisted type ordering, right? And you see shorter time to revenue from the calls. I think like all of those different things are ways that both at front of house, but also in the back end, that you can get to see results that can then justify continued spend. But you will not get to see that. You'll just be talking about it, going around in circles if you don't get started. So my counsel would be get started.
Thank you for that. Massimiliano, what about you? Do you think positive, negative?
Yes, sure. I actually will also pick up from the survey because it came up some very good things. I think, for example, the AI talent is one of the things that it has to be invested on from even the telcos themselves and tech companies, because there is a lack of AI talent. I think Marko mentioned they had a training program in their site, and that I think it's a very good thing to do, because now it's a very good time, because the skill floor went a bit down thanks to the LLM to approach AI. Before it was all math and statistics. Now you can approach already by a simpler way, but the skill ceiling is still very high. So and with now all of these new a lot of information, a lot of knowledge, a lot of data, and different type of markets, everyone wants to do a bit of everything. It becomes more and more complex, where the domain knowledge is very, very important. Not anymore in the phase of data processing like it was in the past, where data processing was the most important part of the AI process. Now, actually, I would say that AI evaluation became the most important aspect of AI, because to have a simple AI working is very easy now. It's maybe like really one line of code. However, evaluating it properly requires a lot of AI knowledge and also a bit of domain knowledge, because mathematical errors, are easy to spot because they are in manual, they're explained very well, but conceptual errors are very difficult to spot if you're not a domain expert. And if you don't spot them, you don't have automatic tools to do it. And you will have a model in production that is going to be very bad, and it can make also harm and damage. So that's very important, I think, investing in AI talent, and there is a lack of it at the moment. So I would say that's the first thing. And the second thing regards also another topic we discussed already about the data privacy and regulation, actually. Because one thing that I see is even not just the asking the user what do you want, what user can share for AI to be trained. Also, I think this should be rephrased differently, because it's not anymore AI to be trained. Like, I think we should share also what this AI purpose is. So one might decide to share some data for some purposes, even if you use AI, but I mean, and not for others. It's not anymore like a big bucket of AI training. It should be a targeted one. And for data privacy as well, we face this issue many times in different countries or location or nations, where sometimes some data is not accessible, sometimes it is. So sometimes as owners of the data don't want, of course, like entities that own the data don't want to share. There are some AI ways to do that, like the federated learning. I don't know if anyone knows. If they want, they can look for it, or I can briefly explain. But in general, there are some ways to overcome that, where instead of having the data transported, you transport only the weights of the models. So there will be nothing. There will be only the functionality of the AI. That's why the functionality is important. So only functionality is exported, not the data. But it's also a very big challenge to overcome, data and regulation. And well, the final we already spoke about, I would say it's the integrating AI with the systems, especially existing ones. I think that's also a big topic to be aware of.
Thanks, Massimiliano. I think you raised three. I mean, I was going to definitely be including this in my conclusion in a couple of minutes already. Dr. Okuda.
Thank you. And as I mentioned, I think there is a huge opportunity for telecom companies and operators to continue connect and to improve the connectivity in places which may or may not have the optimum connectivity yet, because I think these AI solutions will be very popular among those communities in particular. I give the example of the use of ChatGPT in Kiribati, right? But those AI tools for learning, for example, right? I learn French talking to my AI machine every day, and I don't need a French teacher to practice because, you know, the AI machine is very patient with me. So I think these tools are particularly useful for those communities which are unconnected and underconnected. And I hope that that will generate more demand for telecom services. So potentially, and I hope we can create a win-win situation. These AI solutions will generate the demand, which will be good for the communities and users, and they can do much, much more that they couldn't do with a simple connectivity. And we are promoting these easily deployable AI solutions in these communities where there's no doctors, there are very few teachers, and there's no weather forecast, for example, to tell me what will be the weather like a week from now. So I think AI can really solve these issues, provided that the telecommunication networks and services are available. And I believe that these demands will drive that. Thank you.
Thank you. Marko.
Well, I think we said a lot about the trends in the future and possibilities. In my mind, it's you know, I share with you that I just recently watched again the Back to the Future, my favorite movie with my kids. So my kids are now old enough that they can watch that movie together with me. Impressive movie, one of my favorites, right? And I think it's also the one that is telling us how hard it's really to imagine, you know, the future in 20, 30 years from now. So I think we need to be completely open-minded. I think that the way that we are interfacing with our customers is going to change radically. To Massimiliano point, you know, I think the Gen AI is already providing some preview as to how it's going to be looking like in a recent future. But in terms of that, you know, these conversations, be it a chat, be it a video or conversation via voice, it's going to be very much driven by AI, and that's already a reality based on these models that we have right now. At the back, we have the infrastructure and the AI, more that we call the classical AI that is powering our infrastructure. And finally, the data, and of course, the people underneath all of that. So all these foundational things will be evolving and changing radically. And I can see that maybe the inspiration that for me sometimes coming is the manufacturing. And I think the manufacturing has been always a few steps ahead of other industries when it comes to the innovation, especially automation. And we've seen that in China, there are these kind of dark factories or lights off factories where everything is running 24/7 without a human supervision at all. I don't see why we couldn't have a completely automated customer service or retail and sales and a lot of things actually the telco is now running with a massive workforce, and where we can actually shift much more to the value-add services and really reskill and upskill really towards the AI capabilities. So there is a lot of change, a lot of opportunity, and I think we need to be open-minded. It's really hard to say 5 to 10 years from now. In my mind, it's important also, one more thing is very important, that we keep in mind this vision, long-term vision, when we are making decisions right now. So I think it's also not only about these Gen AI capabilities that it's very obvious, you know, that we should put that on our cloud and we start experimenting, but also whenever we are actually choosing which application, which platform, which infra that we should choose, we should keep in mind that kind of what we mentioned before, you know, is this AI compatible? Is it AI native? How can this be connected to the holistic AI blueprint? How we can use these capabilities to solve the problems of the future as well. So that's another perspective probably that we need to take in the future as well.
Thank you for sharing all of this. We're out of time. I've got 1 more minute to wrap everything up. So I've taken away 3 things mainly from this discussion. The first is that AI digitization and the digital transformation it is in play, guys. This is not a drill. We are actually re-architecting a lot of our systems, a lot of our partnerships, a lot of our collaborations. I think at this point in time, and this is the second point that I'm taking away, a lot of the focus and the value cases and the use cases that we're seeing, and we're asking the right question. What value are we bringing when we bring in AI? We're asking the right questions. Now, what we're hearing is that a lot of the use cases look like existing cases. They look like the old things that we're selling. But I think that in the same way that I would not sell a horse-drawn cart versus a very fast car, I think that they are getting you from one place to the other. They look like, they're functioning the same way, but it's fundamentally a different thing that we're doing when we put AI into, let's say, automating the ability to predict where disasters are from, or the automating of predicting and highlighting where possibly a network attack might be happening in your telco. I think that those look like they're old, but actually with the acceleration of AI into that sort of system and the sort of use case, is going to look a lot different. So I think where Marko was saying his Back to the Future idea, I think that we need to be continuously open to the new ideas around change. We need to have that long-term and short-term vision as we're making these decisions. So that's the second thing that I'm taking away. The third thing that I'm taking away is that it is massively important for us to be inclusive in our development of AI policies. We are looking at a dearth of consumer trust. We are looking at a shifting landscape of international standards and global regulations. We are looking at uneven universal connectivity. We're still not achieving that just yet. And huge skills floor that has opened up. But again, the skill ceiling, as Massimiliano has mentioned, skill ceiling continuously is massively high. Thank you very much for joining us. I really appreciate all of you staying online for 90 minutes.